Hello class, this is the lesson chapter 6.2b, estimating percent using fractions. If you do not have your flashcard sheet that gives you the fraction equivalencies for several percents or the percent equivalencies for several fractions, whichever way you want to look at it, hit pause and go get that sheet. Now that you have the sheet, we can get going. First of all, you need to remember that when we take 76% of a number, and hopefully you remember this from last year, when you take a percent of, that of means to multiply. So what we're going to do is change the percent to a fraction where the percent is kind of close. So if I look at 76%, I know that 75% is 3/4. So I'm going to change 76% to 75%. Now I'm also going to use a number that's compatible with the denominator of the fraction. That's this number down here. And I think to myself, and I want it to end in a 0 or 2. Sometimes it's only going to end in 1 0. Sometimes it will end in 2 zeros. I'm going to look at 813 and think, you know what? 4 goes into 800 really easily. So I'm going to change 813 to 800. Ultimately, I'm down here now. 76% of 813 is really, for a good estimate, is going to be 3/4 of 800. Remember that this 800 is over 1, so this 4 is going to reduce to a 1. The 800 is going to reduce to 200. And 3 times 200 is going to give me 600. Now the first few examples here, I kind of gave you a lot of help. I look at 23%. I could go to 20, which is a fifth, or I could go to 25, which is 1/4. But I think 398 is closer to 400, and that will cancel much nicer with a 4 than it will with a 5. So I'm going to have 1/4 times 400. This 4 and this 400 reduce each other. Nice easy math problem. 1 times 100. 78%. Here again, you have a choice. You could go down to the 75, or I could go up to the 80%. Either one would actually work here. I just happen to have chosen to go to 75%, which is 3/4 of 600. Now this is where, kind of nice to know, that 4 times 15 gives me 60. So I can reduce that to 150. And when I multiply, hopefully you know that 3 times 15 is 45, and then I bring through that 0. So what if I had elected to go with 80% of 600? That would work too. 8/10 times 600. This will take away 1 0 here, and I'll end up with 480. Either of those two estimates would be okay. That's why sometimes this gets a little confusing, right? Now, 66. Man, there is nothing closer to 66 than 66 2/3%, and that's going to be 2/3. Now remember, it says up here to round to a number compatible with the denominator of the fraction. So I'm going to key on this 3, 592. What's close to 592 that can very easily be reduced by a 3? 600. 3, 200, and I'm going to get an estimate of 400. Could I have gone to 70%? Yes, but my estimate won't be as precise. You hit pause and do 5 and 6. Okay, let's look at 5 and 6. I chose to use 50% of 520. 50 is very close to 52. Half of 520, 260. In number 6, I have students who will usually go down to 30%, and that would work too. You're going to take 30% of probably 90, which would be cancel the 9, 3, 27. That would be okay too. I like to work with 33 and a third quite easily. So I see 32 closer to 33 and a third than I do to 30. Number 7, I've kind of started it out for you. We have 110% of 300, and the problem, of course, some of you are going to say is, well, what in the wide world fraction is that? Because you don't have that on our flashcard sheet. You're right, I don't. This goes back to the lesson of how to get a percent to a fraction. Remember, I can take off this percent sign by putting the number over 100. Now, I have 110 over 100. I can take these zeros off right away because I can reduce both 110 and 100 by dividing them by 10. So what I really have is 11 over 10 times 300. Now, this 10 takes off this 0. 3 times 11 is 33. Shortcut, bring that 0 over, 330. Students will sometimes ask too, well, what if I decide to keep it as 310? You certainly may. And in that case, you're just going to have a slightly different answer. You're going to take 11 times 31, which would be 341. Now, you try number 8. Did you get your fraction to be 12 over 10? Now, this one's a little tougher because this 10 only takes off this 1 0, so you're going to have 12 times 260. In that case, you're probably going to grab your calculator and get 312. However, if you take 12 over 10 times 260, remember, I can take that to 6 and 5. Now it's a whole lot easier to reduce. This becomes a 52, and I'm still going to get my 312. So either one should work. All right, again, hit pause. You do 9. There's 2 possibilities here, so that's why I have an A and a B. Okay, in G, 65 and percent. You kind of have 2 ways you can go here. Some students will say that 65% is closer to 62.5, which is 5/8. So in A, I did it as 62.5% of 240, knowing that 5/8, 8 goes into 24. Other students say, oh, I think I'm going to take it as 70% of 240. And that'll work too. You'll just get a slightly different estimate, 168. Either one would be fine. Yes, story problems. Fern says that about 64% of her collection of 236 CDs are Christian albums. So estimate the number of Christian albums. I find it helpful to write out the problem. Here's the 64, here's that of, and where's my number? My other number? Over here, 236. Now you got a choice to make. So if I look at my flashcard sheet, I think, all right, I can go 60%, I can go 62.5%, or I can go 70%. And you know what? 62.5% is closer. So I'm going to take 62.5% of, now, 62.5% is 5/8. I key on this 8. I need something that's a multiple of 8. I'm going to go with 240. This 8 to 240 reduces, and I have an estimate of about 150 albums that are Christian CDs. Okay, you tell me, folks. What percent's going to be really close to 9.8%? Because we have 1,267 students, 9.8% live within walking distance. 9.8%, here's our word of, and here's our other number, of 1,267. Now, are you guessing what I'm guessing? 9.8% is close to 10%. The question is, what do I do with the 1,267? And here's where you can go many different ways. I have students who go to 1260. I have students who go to 1270. I even have students that go to 1300. It's up to you. And this is where sometimes estimating gets to be hard. The easiest way to do it is to take it to 1300. Now I have 1/10 of 1300. This 10 is going to take off this last 0, and I'm going to get about 130 students live within walking distance of the school. And that completes lesson 6-2B. Catch you for 6-4. Catch you for the next lesson.